The Napier Commission marked a turning point in Highland history. It was the first time that the voices of the ordinary people began to be listened to in the corridors of power. The clearances were largely over by the 1850s, and there followed a few decades of relative prosperity. But there were underlying problems. The clearances and the creation of crofts had caused a shortage of land and a density of population in areas which were not that fertile. Over on the west coast, in places like Skye and Lewis, when things got a bit worse in the economic downturn of the 1870s, the crofters began demanding the return of the grazing lands which they had previously held. Things got to the stage where the police and even the Navy were called in. The government's response was quite measured. They decided to have a commission, the Napier Commission, to look into the problems of the Highlands and Islands. In 1883, the commission travelled around the Highlands and Islands. Each community got together and they chose a representative to speak for them. This was a new thing. Previously, communities had been represented by a Member of Parliament or by a minister. The folks of Rogart met here at Rulochan Schoolhouse to select who was going to represent them, and they chose a man named John Mackay. The points that John Mackay made to the Commission were very similar to points that were made across the Highlands and Islands. The people complained that their crofts were too small. They complained that their rents were too high and they could be raised at any point. And they complained that they didn't have enough grazing land. John Mackay also made the point that the people here relied enormously on what migrant sons and daughters sent back north to support them. And he also pointed out the psychological consequences of dislocation and land hunger. In his words, he complained that rents were being raised even on holdings reclaimed by the crofters themselves from moor and equally sterile land. The houses and steadings being also built by themselves, often at a cost they could not afford nor bear if they were not assisted by sons and daughters in the south of Scotland and in the colonies. And the tenure, being uncertain, acts detrimentally upon their minds and prevents many of them from effecting improvements. The Napier Commission was important in two ways. First of all, it led to an Act of Parliament. In 1886, the Crofters Holdings Scotland Act was passed. This provided security of tenure, and it also arbitrated in disputes between tenants and landlords. And the other way in which the Napier Commission was extremely important was it took seriously the voice of the people for the first time.